Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the mechanics, the tactics, and honestly, the completely terrifying economics of the Shahed-136 drone. This is a piece of tech that is fundamentally reshaping modern air warfare, literally turning billion-dollar defense grids completely upside down.
Okay, picture this. You're standing right in the middle of a modern city. I want you to imagine the unmistakable, super eerie sound of a two-stroke moped engine just echoing over the glass towers and beaches of a place like Dubai right before an impact. It's this low-cost machine, buzzing like an angry lawnmower, and it brings absolute chaos with it.
And what's wild is that this specific buzzing sound isn't just an accident of using cheap parts, it's actually weaponized as psychological warfare. Soldiers on the ground have reported that it sounds exactly like the World War II German dive bomber, the Stuka. So much like the Germans used sirens to instill terror from above back in the day, the modern battlefield is now defined by the screaming buzz of a low-flying drone in the night sky.
All right, let's get into part one, the buzzing menace.
To really grasp why this weapon is casting such a massive shadow over the region, we have to look at what it actually is. You see, this isn't a traditional aircraft in the way we normally think of military aviation. It's what's known as a loitering munition. Some people call it a kamikaze or a suicide drone. It's a completely single-use, expendable weapon. Basically, it's designed to fly out, loiter in the air while it hunts for a target, and then detonate on impact. The huge advantage here? You don't have to risk putting a multi-million-dollar manned aircraft anywhere near a dangerous target area.
So, what's actually under the hood? Section 2, inside the kamikaze drone.
Now, when you hear the word drone, your brain might immediately go to a tiny little quadcopter you'd see buzzing around a local park. But the Shahed-136 is huge. It's a delta-wing aircraft stretching over 3.5 meters long with a wingspan of about 2.5 meters. It weighs in at roughly 220 kilograms and packs a highly destructive warhead of between 30 and 50 kilograms. And because of its highly efficient design, it has an unbelievable cruising range of up to 2,500 kilometers. That means this thing can literally fly from the Mediterranean coast all the way to the furthest reaches of the Arabian Peninsula.
But here is where we hit the core contradiction of the Shahed, and it's fascinating. On one hand, you've got this massive, stealthy composite airframe that's deliberately designed to have a very low radar signature, making it incredibly tough to track. But then, look at what powers it. It uses a basic 50-horsepower MD-550 civilian engine. We are talking about an incredibly cheap scooter or moped engine sourced from China. This means it flies incredibly slowly compared to your standard modern missiles.
Let's move on to Section 3, how swarm attacks work.
So, a natural question is, how does a slow, obnoxiously loud drone actually manage to hit its target? The secret is sheer volume and low-altitude stealth. The ingenuity is in the disguise, really. The launchers, which hold about 5 drones each, are hidden inside standard civilian cargo truck containers. Once commercial GPS or inertial navigation data gets fed into the system, they use a rocket-assisted takeoff to blast into the air. This booster gets them up to speed in seconds, and then it just ejects and drops off to save weight, letting that tiny moped engine take over. Once they're airborne, they fly in these swarms of 5 to 10 drones at extremely low altitudes to stay under the radar. Whatever drones survive the flight will dive straight onto the target at full speed, sometimes even using anti-radiation seekers to home right in on the enemy's radio or radar signals.
Which brings us to a really critical point. Section 4, the cost of defense.
These rudimentary swarm tactics have completely flipped the mathematics of war. $2 million. Let that number sink in for a second. That astronomical figure is the cost of just one single American Tomahawk cruise missile. Keep that in mind because it sets the stage for a financial comparison that is currently giving defense strategists absolute nightmares.
The disparity in cost here is just staggering. A Russian Kaliber cruise missile, that's going to run about $1 million. But the Shahed-136 comes with an estimated price tag of just $20,000. To put that into everyday perspective, this deadly long-range kamikaze drone costs about half the price of an average $40,000 civilian car in the United States.
Someone famously called it the AK-47 of the skies. And man, they hit the nail on the head. This perfectly captures the asymmetrical nightmare defenders are facing. Advanced air defense systems are being forced to fire multi-million-dollar interceptor missiles to shoot down a drone that costs literal pocket change by comparison. When an attacker launches a massive wave of hundreds of these cheap drones, it becomes completely financially unsustainable for the defender. You're effectively bankrupting a billion-dollar air defense grid just by overwhelming it with budget parts.
So how do we counter this?
Section 5. Stopping the Shahed.
With the cost equation leaning so heavily in favor of the attacker, we need to look at how this threat has spread globally. We first saw Iran supply these to Russia, where they were rebranded as Garan 1 and 2 and used to hammer Ukrainian infrastructure. Then, in April 2024, Iran launched a massive direct strike of over 170 of these drones toward Israel. But here's where it gets super interesting. The economics have forced even the biggest military superpowers to adapt. By December 2025, the United States actually deployed its own reverse-engineered, Shahed-inspired drone called Lucas at around $35,000 a pop. And by February 2026, U.S. forces were already using their own cost-effective swarms in combat.
Thankfully, there is a blueprint to stop them, but you absolutely cannot just rely on expensive missiles. You have to balance the financial scales. Defenders are now relying on a mix of modern electronic warfare, essentially jamming and blinding the drone's commercial navigation, paired with older, way cheaper anti-aircraft guns. We're talking about systems like the German Gepard self-propelled radar guns, which have a 5.5-kilometer range, and the Soviet-era Zu-23 anti-aircraft guns. These older guns are incredibly cheap to fire and are absolutely perfect for chewing up low-flying targets at a 2.5-kilometer range.
By using these multi-layered defenses, Ukraine has actually pulled off a highly impressive interception rate of over 80%. But, and this is a huge but, the reality of swarm tactics is brutal. Because they're launched in such massive groups, the law of averages pretty much guarantees that some drones will always break through the defense screen and hit their marks.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. Reports indicate that close to 60,000 Shahed-type drones have been launched against Ukraine alone. We are operating in a totally new era, where loud, cheap moped engines strapped to composite wings can literally bankrupt billion-dollar defense shields. The technology itself isn't the primary danger. The price tag is. So we have to ask, is our global defense infrastructure genuinely ready for the next massive wave? Thanks for joining me.